The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending today's Lunch and Learn session. Today's topic is on leveraging Sage 100 for project management with presenter Henry Lubis. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Everyone will be in listen-only mode, so if you have questions, please type them into the questions box on the screen, and we will address them at the end of the session. If you need to step away, please do not put your phone on hold. If you have hold music, it will play for all the attendees. The webinar will be recorded, and we will email out a copy to everyone within a few days. I will now turn it over to you, Henry.
Thank you, Krista, and good morning, good afternoon, folks. Again, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Henry Lubis. I am with the Accordant company, the director of Sage 100 Sales and Services. Been doing Sage 100, formerly called Master Builder, for about 11 years now. Worked with hundreds of clients and thousands of prospects over that time, helping them evaluate Sage 100 and implement it where appropriate. So being an old guy like myself, I will still have a hard time calling it Sage 100, so I may lapse into Sage Master Builder from time to time, and some of the folks on there would certainly understand and appreciate. Anyway, my role for the Accordant company, as I said, I talk to lots of new customers, prospective customers, and people have been using the software for quite a while. One of the things that jumps out at me, especially when I'm talking to long-term customers, is how much they are not using in the software. It's very powerful, software, and it seems to me that people will convert to the application, replace whether it's QuickBooks or Peachtree or whatever they were coming from, and they kind of get to a point of, hey, I'm able to cut checks and pay my people and send bills out and do a financial statement, and they kind of exhale and say, "Whew, that was an effort. Let's kind of sit and relax now." Well, the reality is the software can do much, much more. And the successful clients are those who continue to push in the boundaries of the software and use some of the features that that really are the things, the primary reasons why people buy our software. And a lot of that centers around project management. So just go here. So really when we talk about project management, it really means a number of different things to different people. When we go to new prospective customers, they'll say, hey, I want to improve my project management. Well, what does that mean? So to me, there's a couple things. First of all, there's financial project management. In financial project management, there's everything around the project that is a dollar amount to it. A contract bill, an AIA progress bill, a change order, a subcontract, a purchase order, a percentage of completion. So all the things, anything that has a dollar around it, I consider financial project management. And then we talk about project document management. So what does that mean? So there's lots of documents around managing a construction project that don't necessarily have dollars tagged to it, although they might lead to one. Things like an RFP, an RFI, a submittal, or a transmittal. An RFI might lead to a change request based on an answer you get, which will lead to a change order, which will lead to a contract change, which would lead to a subcontract change order. But it initiates with documents. But then there's other documents that are just out there for referral, plan records, etc. So we'll talk about how we can do some of that in Sage 100. And finally, I'd just like to introduce some of the tools that are available in the application as well as outside of the application to help manage some of the things that we're going to talk about. Okay, so when we talk about financial project management, the first thing I want to have people look at is the ever-important percentage of completion schedule. So I'm going to jump right into the software. Hold on a second here. So what do I mean by the percentage of completion? So at the end of the day, and by the way, I've got my desktop set up. I've got it. I don't know how to set these up. I think we recently had a session on how to set your icons up, but to me, this report right here is called the Over Under Billings report, and if we just print it out and kind of analyze it a little bit. To me, this is the crux. Everything you need to know about financial project management can be learned from this schedule. So what does this schedule do? So a lot of times, this will be what the auditors at the end of the year would consider their over-under billing schedule or their percentage of completion schedule. Bonding companies will use this in evaluating your organization's financial position. But at the end of the day, the purpose of this over-under billing schedule from a financial project management basis is to correctly identify the profitability of your company at this point in time. So let's just kind of dissect a little bit. Now I'm just showing two particular jobs here. In most companies, we're going to show all of our projects. But if you look at these columns right here, the cumulative cost to date. So what is this going to show us? This is how much we've actually billed. Oops. How much have we actually billed on these projects, which would be income, revenue on your financial statement. And your costs are your out-of-pocket costs. So if I were just to look at these three columns, I've billed out $1.109 million of revenue. I've spent written checks for payroll, paid subcontractors, open accounts payable on projects, $954,000. So you might say, well, that's a nice tidy profit of $154,000. For those of you with calculators, I'll tell you that 154 divided by 1109 is a nice 13.8% profit rate. Well, I've been in many meetings where I'm looking at this number with an owner, and they'll say absolutely positively, no, there's no way. There's no way. I did these projects at 20% profit. There's no way these could be able to get coming in at 13%. So how do we figure that out? Things popping up here. So how do we figure out where this project really is? Well, let's dissect it a little bit more. Look at this first project. This column right here, let me do this here. Let's see for everyone to see. This column right here is called the estimated cost at completion. So what is that? That is our budget. So if I were to go hover over this 512,000 and double click, I can see, try that again, there it is, that when I originally budgeted this project, it was 504,000, and change orders have added 7,800. So my anticipated cost on this project is 512,000. This is my 630,000 is my contract value. So again, double click on that number, and that's the original contract plus the approved change orders. So that's how I come up with 630. So I think I'm going to get, at the end of the day, when I'm done, I'm going to get 630,000. My estimated cost at completion is 500,000, and if I take 118,000 profit over 630,000, I'm closer to 20% is what I think I'm going to get on this project. Well, if I look at over here on the right side now, cost of revenue, these are your actual costs, right? So what I have done is I've spent actually it's right here, 136,000. So if I take 136,000 of actual costs spent to date, and I divide that by my estimated cost at completion, divide that by 512, I am 26% complete, meaning I've spent 26% of the budget. Well, if I've spent 26% of the budget, and I multiply that times the contract value, that means I've earned 168,000. So I've earned 168,000, but in actuality, I billed 554. In this case, I'm overbilled. So my financial statements are showing too much profit. And that needs to be adjusted. So in that case, I would take my gross profit and I would reduce it with the billing amount, and I'd come up with a more accurate and appropriate representation of what my actual profitability is. So, and again, if I were to look at this, right, I would make I'm overbilled on this project. In this project, I'm underbilled, right? Well, my numbers actually don't make a whole lot of sense. I've spent 179% of the money because I spent $800,000 on a budget of $455. That's the problem. But anyway, the analysis or the exercise would be to take this $154,000 worth of income, right, reduce it by my overbilled portion, which I subtract 386, add my underbilled of 456. My real profit is 224,000. It should be. And when I adjust my real income to 224 and then compare it to what I should have been properly billed at, I do come up with my appropriate profit of 19%. So you can see that using an over-under billing schedule is important to really understand the profitability of your company at any point in time. That's why accountants will do it at year end, especially if you're bonded, especially if you're having reviews or audits done in your company. You're absolutely always going to have this over-under billing schedule. And proper financial project management will make this process a whole lot easier. So how would I do that? Well, there's a couple of things elements I need to control in my software to help us generate that profitability. Okay, so I'm going to open up an existing project. And the first element, so here's the 35 screen, pull up the job. The first thing you need to do to come up with a proper work in process schedule is to establish a budget. So in this case, the contract value initially is $625,000. And if I click on the budget tab, my expected cost to do this job is $504,000. So right off the bat, there's some profitability as I did the job. And again, this budget is, I've got how many, 40-some rows for my budget categories. This data not only has dollars, but it has hours. And this comes from the estimating process in your organization. So we see people estimate in lots of different ways. We do have tools to help develop these estimates, either right in Sage 100 Contractor, basic estimating. We integrate with other estimating solutions. Some of our clients use things like HCSS, and there's templates that we can import from that. However, your organization, we have guys that love their Excel spreadsheets, will never change those Excel spreadsheets, and that's fine, but when you get the job, let's get that Excel spreadsheet. Someone's got to key it into here. We also have guys that love that yellow pad. And they have all these notes scribbled on, and you know what? They've been doing this for 30 years. They're very profitable, so I'm not going to argue with the approach. But the important part is once that job is awarded, we got to get the numbers from that yellow pad into here. I even have clients that say, I don't know, I just look at a project and I know what the market's going to take, and that's what I'm going to bid it at. Well, I've actually got clients who will take the bid number because there's no formal estimating process used, and they'll say, well, I know I'm making 15% historically, so let's put the budget in here at a one lump sum at 85% of the bid price. And I've seen people do that. To me, it doesn't matter. The more accurate you can be here, the better. But the important part is you've actually established a budget. Because that is a key component of that width schedule that we saw earlier. Now, having said that, projects evolve over time. Costs escalate, revenue escalates, and that's as a result of change orders. So in Sage 100, we have the ability to manage change orders. So let's go look at this one here called Move a Window. If I double click, I'm drilling down to change order number 4. So what is that? We're moving a window. Why are we moving a window? The engineer said we have to. Have some date tracking. Which of our project managers submitted it? Who did I submit it to at the client? So maybe what we did was we came in here and we said, yeah, we're going to ask for $4,900. negotiated and agreed to a different value, $4,450. So our contract is now going to be updated and managed and increased by $4,450 to the owner. I don't want to go into a lot of detail on this process, but we can put scope of work here. We can print a change order document. So I can print it. This is what comes with the software right out of the box. Everything I've typed in will show up here. We can customize that. We can make it look more like a G701 if this is what your documents need to look like. And we could also click this button right here. And what happens is, if you haven't seen this, it converts that to a PDF. And now it's the second. So now I can have the change order. So very quickly I can enter a change order, prepare the change order request document, send it off to my customer for approval. Just a quick aside, for those of you who haven't seen or used the attachment tool, the attachment tool is in the upper right-hand corner of all your screens, or most of your screens anyway. And we can attach things like a picture. So the famous picture for us, at least, and that the little boat's called original contract and the big boat's called change order. So we can attach pictures. You know, maybe they've upgraded the specifications of what you're doing. So maybe you know, they've upgraded the specifications on shingles on the roof. It was, you know, the project specs call for a 20-year shingle. They're upgraded to a 50-year shingle. And by the way, here's the cut sheet of the technical specifications. And now I can attach that to this change document. You know, and/or when they sign off on the document, you scan that document and now attach it right here in the software. So again, project management gives you the ability to track all of this information in one central location. So you don't have to have folders. You know, these pieces of paper information are oftentimes scattered around the organization, right? The back of somebody's truck, they're in a construction trailer, they're in a folder somewhere in the office. Well, where are they when you need them? With this project management tool, you can keep track of them quite effectively in one spot. Now, more importantly than this, how much we're getting from the customer for this change order is this tab here called the budget and sub-change details. So what's it going to cost us to move that window? And think of this as a mini estimate, right? So there's 5 line items. The total of that is $3,025. So to move the window, I had to put my guys on it for 10 hours. That cost $500. I need to buy $250 worth of material. By the way, that's going to impact the windows category. Now I've got 3 subs that are impacted. The glass guy's got to get some money. The masonry person has to get some money, and the stucco group has to get some money. And these 3 rows you're looking at here actually generate subcontract change notices. So now I need to alert Shelter Glass that, hey, you're going to get $1,200 more to do this extra work. Right? And in fact, there's a document in Sage right over here if you haven't seen it. Hang on one second. Print subcontract orders. So, you know, to Action Plumbing on this project, here's your change order. And again, the important part about creating that change order document, creating a budget on the change order document is, you know, let's go back to this over under billing schedule. And if this is the key to managing your business, okay. This contract value, $630,000. If I again hover on that and double click, the original contract was $625. There's the change order. If I double click on that, there's my change order log, and in fact that $4,450 is now increasing the contract value for the purposes of the schedule, and likewise the budget. So the original budget was $504,000. Double click on the change order list, and this one happens to be broken down by subcontractor, and this change order has been, the budget for this category is increased by these dollar amounts. So again, in order to make this schedule work, which again I said is the key to managing profitability in your company, entering change orders with proper budgets is critical to this process. If there's any questions, please type them in. I'll be happy to take them at any point in time. Now, another key.
I have two so far, Henry. You want to take them now or wait?
So let's take them. So go ahead.
Okay. So the first question is, does the over-under billing report include service receivables?
It does not, but I will show you something that we have done for another client that does. So when I get to the later in the presentation, I have an example of where we did that.
Okay, the next one is, not sure how we ended up profitable when we overspent the budget on job number 2 by almost double. I was lost on that. Maybe you can go back to that.
Well, we weren't really profitable. What happened on that, from a mechanical perspective, we spent 179% of the budget. Let me just make that clear. So we spent $800,000 compared to a budget of $455, which means we've spent $179,000. So if you just do the math, maybe that means you've done the work, but there are change orders that have not yet been approved, which don't update the contract value. So it's really just a math exercise. So you're probably, in that case, just have change orders that haven't been approved, signed off on yet. So that's probably what's going on. But the reality is it shouldn't be like that. And that's why forecasting cost to complete, which is the next topic, is going to be very, very important to manage this process. And we'll get to that here in a second.
Okay, and then there's one more.
Go ahead.
Can you address pending change orders versus actual change order? I want to record any and all potential change orders, but they don't all get approved. The owner may be right, it's incidental. If we enter them as you've shown, how will that impact reports?
Okay. So right here, when I enter a change order, you can see there are status 1 is approved, and status 2 is a pending change request. And if I come back to the main job screen, go to the contract summary, we're going to get a recap. So these up here, these are the approved changes, and then we've got pending change orders here. So right now, just at this snapshot, maybe these pending changes, will ultimately may or may not turn into real change orders. But what's also interesting about that, let me go back to this change order document. Now, again, this status up here may or may not be approved, right? But I can independently approve the change orders to the subcontractor, right? So, we see this all the time, right? Something happens on the site, the owner's rep says, yeah, go ahead and do that, we'll process the paperwork. You have to commission the subcontractor to do the work, because it would be silly to have the excavator come back after you've built the building to go deeper, right? So you tell the excavator, we got to go down another foot. Don't worry about it, we're getting a change order, so you can approve the subcontract change notice there, independent of the owner change. So a pending change request, again, would be open. And again, we can approve the owner change and the sub change independently. We'll also talk about the alerting tool at some point, where you may want to get an alert change order requests that have been open for more than 30 days, right? So we can do a lot of that here in the system. Okay, next topic is managing committed costs. So I don't want to go into this in a lot of detail, but I think this is an important tool to help manage from a financial perspective your percentage of completion in your project. So we give you the ability in Sage 100 to do purchase orders and subcontracts. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here other than to say when you create a you can create a subcontract document. In this case, it's the shelter glass. They're doing the windows or glazing on the project. You can put in scope of work notes, contract value. And many clients will, especially in residential remodeling type situations, you work with the same HVAC guys and electricians and what have you. So they give you a quote, you accept their quote. That's fine, but put it here, and I'll show you why here in a second. Other clients, more in the commercial GC world, will have formal contract documents. So many of our clients need something that looks like an AIA G402, I think this is. And here's 12 pages of terms and conditions, which we embed into it the scope of work. Here it is. Here's the scope of work and the dollar volume. So, and how do people do this before Sage 100? Well, there's a Word document. You change the name, address, phone number every time, and it's like the game of telephone. At some point in time, you make small changes. This guy wants to change to a term here or there that you have to agree to, and that migrates to the next change, So lots of opportunities for error and changes, what have you. But the important part is enter that subcontract document here, regardless if you produce it from here or not. And, maybe he signed it, so you could, have him sign it, put it here. So you have a copy of the signature. Get a copy of their certificates of insurance at the vendor level, attach those certificates here and track that. So from a project management perspective, that's important for a couple of reasons. So just step back here. So here's another report, job settlement report. Do yourself a favor, write this down, 06/01/1341. It's in a weird spot. It's under home builder reports, shouldn't be there. But to me, this is the second most important report in software. It's called the job settlement report. And look at what we have on this report. So here is a job by those categories, those budget categories, and it's showing me the original budget. So there's the windows. We knew the original budget was $19,000. We have change orders. So $4,800 of additional cost as a result of change orders. New budget is $24,000. I've spent $18,000. So that's important, right? So you've got money left on that, but how much have I committed or bought out on that line item? And that's right here, this $5,300. So I know if I were to take $18,000, $5,300, and compare it to $24,000, I'm under budget by $750, or will be under budget by $750. Take an item like acoustical treatment. The budget is $2,450. I haven't spent a penny. We're not even close to doing ceilings. But you know what? I gave a contract to somebody for $6,000. At the end of this job, I'm going to be over budget on that line item. Let me see where I can make that money up. So again, managing a budget, managing a contract appropriately, and managing a committed cost appropriately is important to give you the ability to manage projected profitability on a project. So that's one real good reason to do a contract in Sage, and the other is just the accounting process. I'm not going to go into this a whole lot, but what I can do here as an example is I can enter an invoice, just type in the contract number, it knows the vendor, it knows the job, it's telling me he's got expired certificates of insurance. Just come into here. I put 100,000. It knows the retention rate for the sub on the job. And if I click on here, I can tell there's only $2,000 left on his contract, right? He gave him a contract for $19,000. We got change orders. He's invoiced us $23,000. He's only got $2,000 left. We can set the software up to give me a warning. So what do I want the system to do? And this is your option. When I get an accounts payable transaction, right, what do I want the software to do? Do I want a message, or do I want to prevent that from happening? And if I'm good, do I want to set a tolerance? And okay, guys can exceed it by 5% without a whole, without being alarmed. So again, the reason you want to set up a commitment is the actual processing of costs against that commitment is we can capture it. So everybody who pays a subcontractor, you have to do these processes. You have to compare it to his contract or her contract. You have to see if there are change orders to that contract. You have to see if how much of has been billed to date. You have to check the retention value, and you have to check your certificates of insurance. I can do that right here in Sage 100 in seconds. Probably just took me 2 minutes to do while I was explaining it to you, but you in real time when set up that happens in seconds, as opposed to a manual process to do that. So very, very important project management concept in Sage. By the way, we'll also produce lien waivers. So when you go write those checks, we can do lien waivers right out of the software. Okay, so I want to get to the next part of the presentation. Hold on a second. So that's it on financial. Oh, forecasting cost of food. Good answer. Good question. Good topic. Okay, how do we do that? Well, there's lots of different ways to forecast cost to complete. And one of the things that's available in the software is right here, cost to complete. So this is in everybody's software that has the document management, project management system. That's all you do. What we're going to do is this. We're going to look at a project. Here is the budget. Here's our actual cost to date. Now, what we can do here is say, all right, what percent comes? Let's look at this line item here called on a line item by line item basis. The budget was $46,000. I spent $32,000 to date. The system says I spent 70% of the money, but you may know as a project manager, hey, that task is done, right? So I'm going to manually type into this cell 10% and recalculate it. And it tells me that task will be under budget by $14,000. Look at this task down here. Budget was for 12. I spent 12. System says I'm done. Hey, I know I'm only 10% done. So I can put 10% done here, or I can type in a cost to complete. I need to spend another $50,000 on that. When I calculate, it's going to tell me I'm going to be over budget on that line item by $50,000. So that's one tool people use to calculate where they might be. Not quite effective in my opinion because there's a couple of ways to come into what percent complete am I, as well as are there committed costs or they don't show up on this task. But it's not a bad way to get started. So there's a couple ways we've done that. I'm going to introduce a tool called Liberty Reports. And there's a whole session coming up on the Lunch and Learn on business intelligence. We're going to focus on Liberty Reports, so I'm not going to go into what Liberty Reports is too much here other than to say it's an integration between Excel and Sage 100. So, for example, right here, if I change this to job 186 and refresh, all my budget data, my budgeted hours, dollars, actual to date, all these blue numbers come from Sage. I didn't type these in. And so again, if I change it back to job 100 and refresh, you could see those numbers changed. It goes in, it reads the Sage 100 database and puts the appropriate numbers in. But now what I can do in a more scientific way, right, is to look at each line item and say, well, where am I? Right? So let's just do a couple of examples here. Let's take site work. My budget is $46,000 in site work. I've spent $32,000. And again, that blue number is coming from your actual cost of Sage. If I were to post an invoice right now and refresh, that number would change. And maybe in that case, I'm 100% complete. So when I typed in 100% complete, you can say the cost at completion is this number. I have spent all the money. My variance is, in this case, it's a positive variance. Now, if I'm 50% complete, that means my cost at completion is $65,000, and I'm a negative variance. So that's one way to do it. You could, instead of doing a percent complete, you could come into here and say, well, what's the cost to complete? So I've spent $32,000. The budget is $46,000. I know I've got another $20,000 to go on that line item, and you can see my cost at completion is $52,000. My variance is negative, and that's red. Now this red you're looking at here, that's an Excel function. That's why this Liberty reporting tool is a great tool. You're just using standard Excel functionality to come up with this. So maybe I don't want to do it. Maybe I want to say cost at completion. So cost at completion is going to be $44,000. So again, I'm going to be under budget. So and I've got clients that will take this form, right, and they sit down in a project management meeting once a week, and they'll go line by line with the project manager and the owner. Where are we on concrete? Well, there's another option. You can see here I've got dollar. Let's say you're self-performing. So the budget was for 66 hours. We've spent 24 hours, but from a forecasting perspective, I got 2 guys out there. They're going to be there all week to finish that. That's 80 hours. That's not good. I'm 38 hours over budget. Or, you know what, we're not going to spend hours at completion. We're going to get that done in 50 hours total, which is still over the budget. Hours at completion. Yeah. So, we can certainly use this tool to come up with that forecasted cost to complete for this project. And it's a very effective tool. Where this is most appropriate is people are doing this already. I see this all the time, and they've got their Excel spreadsheets. The logic is built in, but hey, let's use Liberty Reports and make that process of filling it out more efficient. Now, if I were to do that in an over-under, so here's, bear with me a second. Okay, so let's look at another way of doing this in Liberty Reports. Let's look at it in total, right? So bear with me one second. So this is the same over-under billing report I showed you coming from Excel. I go all the way to the right. There's my overbilling, my underbilling, right? Again, using Liberty Reports, the blue values are coming directly, so the cost to date are coming from Master Builder. So if you look at this right here, the costs are $400,000. My budget is $500,000. I've spent 80% of the money. The contract is $539,000. Now, using Excel, again, if I go to this checkbox here, you can see it's bringing in original contract, approved changes, plus service invoices. So there's someone asked the question, how do we incorporate service invoices? We can do that right here. And we can update the contract value. So that is the contract value, right? And then we go to bill to date. Over here, we have contract billing and service billing. So we can, in fact, and have incorporated service billings into the WIP schedule. So if I'm 80% complete, 80% of the contract value is, hold on a second, 539 times 80% is 431. I billed 511. Means I'm overbilled by $80,000. So I go over here. Sure enough, I'm overbilled by $79,000. So what if I want to play with these numbers, right? So what have we done here? So sometimes clients will come in here, and we've got this column here, and it's an Excel function. It's a manual adjustment. If I get rid of that manual adjustment, it says I've completed 89% of this project, right? Which, if I scroll off to the right, I've overbilled. I have to reduce my financial statements by $31,000. Well, maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I really know, and I'm sorry I'm jumping around here, that, hey, I'm done with this project. I beat it, right? I did better. So I just say my cost, my total cost is going to be, I'm right at my total cost number, give or take, right? So I'm 100% done with that job. I beat the budget. Now watch what happens when I make that go all the way to the right. Now if I'm going from an underbilling, I'm going to an overbilling, I'm going to another. So I can now bring $27,000 worth of profit back into my financial statement. So again, using these tools we allow you to forecast cost to complete and give you a very accurate picture of the profitability of the company. Okay. I know we're only supposed to be half hour, 45 minutes. I'm going to try to wrap up in the next 15 minutes. So let me jump ahead to project document management. There's a couple of things here that we have that I want to talk about in the software. So let me jump back into Sage 100. And if I open up the Project Work Center, this is an interesting tool. Not many people use it or aware of it, but it's called the 612 Project Work Center. And what this allows us to do is on a project-by-project basis, see things like if I wanted to go and see all of my progress bills, there's all my progress bills, and I can double-click and go right down to the actual 3/7 record. If I want to see, as an example, my accounts payable, there's a list of all the 4/2 records that are specific to this project, and I can get right to that. Same with project management, so I can get into the documents. And in Sage Project Construction Documents, now, depending on when you purchase this is included in your software if you purchased 2 years ago or earlier. If you purchased since that point in time, it is an extra $500. But we have RFPs, RFIs, transmittals, submittals, plan records, etc. So not only can we create RFIs there, but we can put them on this area in the middle. It's called the hot list. So let's go look at an RFI document, a socket change. So when people have an RFI, you record a bunch of information about it. It's for a job. You have a description. It's either going to go to a client, which is a vendor, or a client. So sometimes it goes to an architect, sometimes it goes to a client, sometimes it goes to a subcontractor. We can type in here what we need. What information do we need? This is the information that's been supplied, returned, right? By the way, you can, in fact, attach emails right from here. So if your reply comes in terms of an email, you can attach it right to the document. In this case, it's been returned. When we're working on it internally, it's open. When we send it off for an answer, it's submitted. When they return it, it's returned. We can produce an RFI form. You can buy the software, it looks like this. Not bad out of the box, right? RFI, here's what I'm asking for, here's the information. If you want to send that out, click on the email button, we can send it out. So the form itself is user-defined or customizable. We do that a lot for our clients. And then everybody wants a log. There's a couple ways to do logs in the software. You can come right into here. This is the query tool. If you're not familiar with the binoculars, it's a pretty good idea to look at it. So I want to do an RFI by job. I'm going to run this query. Here's my RFI log by job. I didn't put a filter on it, but I could put a filter by job, by status. Show me everything that's been returned, show everything that's past due, etc. There's a log. Some of our clients want a log that they can take to a project management meeting, and they want it to look pretty nice, right? So we've been able to do that. So here's an example of the question and answer log. I think someone gave me a sample of something out of Primavera and said, look, this is what we're used to. I want to bring this to a project management meeting. There you go. So we can customize that log to look any way you want. So again, what we see is people are doing this in Excel and Word, and it's all over the place. And you want to be able to track it right from here. Another thing that's important is the daily field report. Again, another often overlooked issue. So what's a daily field report? A daily field report allows us to, on a day-by-day basis, a project manager is going to report the following information. So on December 17th, Bill Smith is reporting the following. These are the employees that are on the project. Now this, by the way, information goes directly to the 522 screen for payroll process. What subcontractors were on the job. This is really just for reference purposes, right? So who was there, when did they come? When you have claims against subs or against you and you want to find out what's going on, you can track that here from a project management perspective. What's the weather? What's the temperature? If I'm a heavy highway contractor, what equipment did we use on that project that day? That'll feed our equipment costing. And again, if I'm a heavy highway type company, what did I complete that day? It's not really set up for that, but if this was linear foot of pipe, how many linear foot of pipe did I complete today, which would feed some job costing reports as well as our unitary billing. So, having said that, this daily field report has great functionality for integrating project information from the field, including incidents and meetings. Right? You have a safety meeting, you have an accident, you want to record that, you want to have meeting minutes. You can put meeting minutes right here. A lot of functionality, and we'll talk about how we get that data from the field here in a second. So I want to kind of wrap up, talk about what are some of the things that we can do to help you in this process, manage this project documents and financial information. Well, a couple months ago by Max Steicher is on the alerts. So one thing that helps project management and efficiency for sure is the alerting tool. And again, I'm not going to go into how to set these up or how to manage these, but we can set Sage up to, based on something happening in our software, kick out an alert. Now the alert can either come to your dashboard, which I'm showing you here, or it could come to you via email. But things like, let's look at this one, a payable invoice was posted to a job without a budget amount. Well, if you're managing, go back to the first report I showed you, right? Over under billing report, budgets versus actual, forecast to complete. If you're managing your projects down to that level, the accounts payable person comes in and enters a job without a budget. Ooh, why? Are they charging the wrong job? Are they charging the wrong budget category? Is it something that requires a change order? Is it going to impact my cost to complete and profitability? I want to know about that. That should never happen in my company. And by the way, I can turn it off if I said it so I can't do it. But as a project manager, that comes to my desktop. Let's go see what's going on here. I can double click right here and actually see the invoice. Wait a minute. I'm not buying toilets on this job. What happened? And I can send an email to someone and say, hey, that's probably the wrong job. Or things like, hang on a second. Inventory allocation, same idea. If I have inventory and someone pulled inventory out and charged it to a job without a budget, hey, I want to know about that. Or payroll. Daily payroll, saved without a budget, was sent to a job without. So daily payroll is entered before payroll happens. So, hey, I'm getting an alert. Long before payroll is processed, and you know what happens. I'm not going to find out that until I get a job cost report, which might be a week or so after. So we can track that. Or submittals due. So we can set deadlines on documents, submittals, change orders. Change orders that are overdue, RFIs that are overdue, send an email to me or to the project manager or to the vendor or the architect that, hey, you got to get these things out there. Vendor certificate's about to expire. So that alerting tool is a key component of being able to manage. Again, I'll come back to that. Over under billing report. So as things seem to be going out of whack, we can be alerted to potential problems in that report long before they happen. We're running out of time, so I'm going to just very briefly touch on two other topics. We talked about Liberty Reports, great project management tool. We have a session coming up, I think, in September with Peg Galente. Going to be talking about that in detail, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. But there's two other things that are on the horizon that I think are important for project management. One's called Sage Construction Anywhere. So Sage, as a company, have recognized that the workforce is becoming quite mobile. People are out in the field, need to be able to track information out in the field. So they've introduced Sage Construction Anywhere. I will tell you, I actually have a webinar tomorrow with Sage because they're rolling out some of the first iterations of this. And I will tell you the first iteration is tied to Timberline, Sage 300. Sage 100 will probably be a fall release. And if you have, but the concept here, if I scroll down, is in the first iteration for Sage 300 and then Sage 100, we're going to have three things. We're going to have project reports. So the concept there is I'm the project manager in the field. Maybe I need to see a current cost report, a budget variance report. From a web browser, I'm going to be able to go in and establish criteria, and a report will be delivered to me. The other tool is project files. Now, project files, and by the way, if anyone is interested in learning about this, go to this website. Just go to sagecre.com, go to Construction Anywhere, you can get here. But project files, what project files are is a web-based way to manage documents in the field. So pictures, drawings, all kinds of things that you might want to track and share. So the difference with this compared to managing documents internally is we allow you to collaborate now with people outside the organization on these documents. So you might have a set of plans. What you'll be able to do is you'll be able to give the subcontractors, architects, owners access to the plans and set security. What can they see? Well, the MEP guys can only see these sets of plans, et cetera. And they can only see it. They can't download it. They can't change it. They can't upload it versus a project manager who can do everything. So allowing us to establish a repository for project documents on a secure website that could be shared across the company. And time. So again, one of the first iterations will be time capture. So there's a web-based portal where supervisors will be could enter time, and that time will flow in eventually to the 522 screen in Sage 100. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be a great tool as people progress, and it gets built out. Now, the next iteration will include project documents, RFIs, RFPs, submittals, transmittals. Instead of going into an on-premise solution like Sage 100 and creating those documents and logs, you're going to have the ability to create them and enter them through this portal, and then again share them and collaborate with people in the field. So stay tuned. Exciting times for Sage, and your maintenance dollars are hard at work. One final concept, although it's kind of hard to demonstrate what this is we've got clients that are putting their entire Sage 100 Contractor solution on the cloud. So what does that mean? That means instead of you taking Sage 100, installing it on the server in your office, going to your individual workstations, installing the application, mapping the file to the network drive, and using it internally, we're doing that all on a hosted website outside of your building. So what happens is, there have been many clients that have done this already, is we talk to the outside service provider, and there's a couple we work with. They will install Sage on their servers. They give you a secure access portal. This is just one of ours that we could get into if I wanted to. And when you open up that portal, the software is exactly what you looks exactly the same and works exactly the same way. Now, where is this and why is this important? Well, we have seen this, and I probably have a dozen people in the past 2 or 3 months that have decided to go this way. And it's important, it's useful in a couple of key situations. One is if you're a Mac shop, if you're an Apple shop, we're hardware agnostic on the cloud. So I've got clients who have done this specifically because they had Macs and they're able to access our application on the Mac over the internet. The other reason where it has applicability is people who lack infrastructure. You know, startup companies don't have an office. 3 project managers and owners working virtually don't even have a place that an office for a server, but they want to share data. Perfect application. And you know, the other option, you've got a client that is just having infrastructure issues, right? The servers, they have servers, they're older, they can't keep up with the latest technology, or it's expensive to install new servers. So you know what? Let's get Sage in a cloud environment. You know, $50 a month a user or $75 a month a user, depending on your flavor, and you're up and running in 24 hours. You don't have to worry about your network person or, you know, your infrastructure or corporate people to come down and set this up for you. So very, very useful. And the other area is we just have project managers in the field that we really want to give them access to creating their own change orders, RFIs. We want them to put their own time in. So we want to give them real access on a real-time basis to Sage 100. And this is a great way to do that. We just had a client go through that process. So, okay, I'm right up to 1 o'clock. I apologize. I get excited about showing you guys all this good stuff.
We have a whole list of questions.
Okay, so go ahead, and I'll stay as long as you guys want, and you know, but go ahead.
Okay, first question. You can approve the subcontractors. What about labor and material?
You can approve the subcon. So I'm not quite sure I understand that question.
I mean, it was back earlier. I don't know if it had something to do with what you were doing at 1226.
Sorry. If someone who answered that question could elaborate a little bit, you know, just please let me know. You know, labor and materials are, you know, if you're forecasting.
It was in the change order module.
Oh, yeah. Oh, got it. Yes. Okay. No, labor and materials only become approved budget dollars when the master, the client change order is approved. So that's a good question. I never thought about that, but that is in fact the case. Correct.
Okay, so the next one is the change order tab showed some as status 2, but money in the approved column. This seems to be how Sage processes the change order when exported from the takeoff to change order. Is there something that can be done about that?
You know, I don't know off the top of my head what I would want to do. Whoever gave you that question, send me a private email, and I'd be happy to spend some time. It sounds like you're using the takeoff tool to create the change order. And to be perfectly honest, I haven't played with that a whole lot, but it's an interesting question, and I'd love to help you try to figure out an answer. So
Okay,
send me a private email. My email is here. And
I have Linda's contact information, so you can follow up with her as well.
Great.
The next question, is there any way to tie the subcontract into the bid items? We do a lot of unit price contracts. My electrician may have 75 line items. I've entered in my bid items, and then then invoice on them, but don't really want to re-enter each item.
Again, I'd have to know more specifically about how that billing happens. Sometimes we would use phase codes to roll up multiple items into one item for unit price billing. Again, if it's unless it's a function of migrating from a takeoff to one lump sum. Again, I'm thinking out loud here, so I apologize. If you're using the takeoff module and you've got 25 items for your electrician to do, all 25 items are going to come into a subcontract document. I don't know that there's a way to roll up into one item on the subcontract, but again, that's something I would love to take offline. I don't think there's an answer to that right off the top of my head, but send me an email and I'd love to talk to you about it offline.
Okay. Next Next question is this a canned report with the Liberty reporting tool?
Okay, Liberty reporting tool. I showed you two. I showed you the forecast, which is one of the standard templates. So let me just get back to that real quick here. Hold on a second. Okay, so this one, which is the forecast, job forecast, in fact, is one of the standard Liberty report templates, which is here. So the job forecast by cost for the standard. The other one I showed, this over-under billing. No, this is not. However, there's one that's very close to what we did. Was we took one of the standard ones, so we probably opened up this work in process template off of Liberty Reports and just added a couple columns. Well, in the other columns, it's really easy because a lot of it's just Excel functions. So if you know Excel, making changes, if you have the developer license of Liberty Reports, making those kind of changes are pretty easy. But no, this was something we customized. But it was not a hard customization. I mean, that's the great news with Liberty Reports. I can tell you, in my career, I've tried to do WIP schedules, customized WIP schedules with the Master Builder Report Writer, Sage 100 Report Writer. And I was successful, but it took a long time to get it to where we wanted it. And then when Liberty Reports came out, we went back to this client I did it for, and I think we did it inside of 3 or 4 hours. I mean, it was really simple. So, great tool. Look for our next Lunch and Learn. I think that's the fall, if I'm not mistaken, with our business intelligence. So check our schedule and look for that again.
Okay, the next one is, can cost codes be hidden to show field personnel only hours instead of dollars?
Well, it depends on where you are entering that data. So if you want to, for example, go to a daily field report, if you want to give your field personnel, hang on a second, access to a daily field report, let's say. Well, that's a couple of, it is required, so I have to enter this here, so they would have to see it. They wouldn't have to see it, but they'd have to enter something. So technically, I could hide it, right? So I could hide it. I could also secure it, right? So I could come into here. I'm supervisor. I can come into here, hit the F7 key, and say who has access to that field and limit who has access to that. But since if they're going to enter data here, they have to enter a cost. Not they don't have to see budgets, right? I can hide budgets. If you notice on the daily field reports, there's no rates here. There's no pay rates. There's just hours. So most times, allowing employee supervisors to enter an employee, enter a cost for what did they do, who did it, what did they do, was it regular? Maybe you don't do this here. And how many hours? You know, there's usually not a whole lot of harm in that, right? And we can secure anything else. So don't give them access to the billing, don't give them access to the budget, don't give them access to pay rates. All of that can easily be secured.
Okay, the next question. In the job settlement report, do the purchase orders have to be issued to show on this report, or can it just be in open status?
In the job settlement report, committed costs include purchase orders and subcontracts. So I don't know if I have any here set up. So you can see here, the committed, when I drill down, that 58,000 is a subcontract. In that particular line, there's no POs, but if you issued purchase orders to a job and to a cost, they would show up as committed. I'm not quite sure if that was the question or not, but
Ready for the next one?
Yep.
Okay. Is there an iPad app for the Sage Construction Anywhere?
Construction Anywhere will work on any web browser. So again, I'll know more about this tomorrow, but if you can run Safari on an iPad and do anything that will, so yes, you can run Construction Anywhere over Safari on an iPad. I believe they are working towards building an app for an iPad or an iPhone for the timekeeping. Makes more sense, right? It's kind of hard to do project documents on an app, right? iPad, there's probably more. It's probably easier to use an iPad on documents, on the project documents. But I think they're working towards a dedicated app for timekeeping. So, you can run your smartphone. You can want to run a browser on a smartphone, but the resolution isn't quite there, et cetera. So for timekeeping, I think they're working on an app. But, stay tuned. They tend to not divulge too much information about product until it's actually been released. Sage Contractor Anywhere for Timberline is just being released within days of today. Again, like I said, tomorrow is my webinar about the rollout, so I'll know more tomorrow.
Okay, that is all the questions we have. You have some follow-up items afterwards, so I'll send those to you.
Yeah, shoot that out to me, Krista, or people please send me an email with any very specific questions you have. Sorry I went a little over, but I hope you get a lot of value out of our time we spent together. And like I said, if there's any questions at all that you have, feel free to call us, call me direct, and we'll be happy to work with you guys.
Thank you, everyone.